And we're back.
Welcome to No Direction, the Pathfinder news, reviews, and interviews podcast. I'm Vanessa Hoskins.
And I'm Luis Loza. So this week is PaizoCon, which would normally be a big, exciting, eventful thing here over at the No Direction Network. But I think we have something even more special going on here.
Bigger news, if you will.
Bigger news, yes. We get to visit with some good, old, wonderful friends here at No Direction Network in the form of, well, wouldn't you know it, our two special guests tonight here. We have, of course, Ryan Costello.
Hello.
And the man of the hour, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
You say bigger news, but I've been trying to lose weight.
Oh my gosh. Not like that. Oh my gosh. I can't believe I just said that. I'm so embarrassed. Now I can only just think of more inappropriate euphemisms for bigger. More important news? More pressing news. Wait, no, pressing still involves weight.
More notable news.
Notable, yes.
Uh-huh. There we go. I used my special works with words powers to save us there. Yeah, it's something that we managed to put off for a whole week. But hey, Perram, what's going on? I hear you got some news.
Yeah, well, I've been having a blast with this No Direction Network thing for 12 years or so now, and it's been wonderful. I've loved every minute of it. But unfortunately, I have some other opportunities that would take a considerable amount of time. So I am unfortunately going in a different direction.
Yeah, you've got your awesome 3D miniatures show, Print Your Games. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of my projects I'm doing right now. With
you have more than that.
Yeah,
so much awesome.
I'm working on things. There's some things that I hope that my listeners will enjoy, but right now it's No Direction's awesome. That's kind of my focus for right now.
Descriptivist in chat asks if it's Yes Direction is what the other thing you're working on is.
Oh gosh, I that is one SEO battle I will be glad to not be fighting personally in the future. One Direction has been trying to steal every one of our boost dollars ever since we started the podcast.
Really?
Well, I used to use that as a barometer for how well we were doing, because if all of the recommended videos next to a No Direction video were One Direction music videos, it's just like, we're just a drop in the bucket here. But eventually, it was mostly No Direction videos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think they broke up, which might have helped.
It does help when they stop to exist. I mean, and No Direction has been around to see lots of things stop to exist. Other podcasts we loved, series we enjoyed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All good things and all that, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I really love, I still love Pathfinder. I still love Paizo, and I still love everybody at the No Direction Network 110%. But this funny thing happened called COVID, and I had a career change where I became a full-time video producer. And lots of fun skill sets have entered my wheelhouse, and I have these ideas for all these crazy projects that I'm really wanting to do. And every time I start to gear up on one, I realize I would love to do this. Oh, but I have 1,000 billion commitments of humongous projects that I'm working on and people that are counting on me. And so unfortunately, I had to make some really hard choices, including probably one of the hardest choices I've ever had to make, which is realizing that I can't continue to be the producer for or the director of production at No Direction with so many podcasts. You all have grown so much. You've become such a humongous family, and it's just like you all deserve better than my half effort that I would have been able to give if I had also tried to do these other projects and continued to try to juggle No Direction into that mix.
Yeah, that's understandable. I mean, especially when you have exciting, new opportunities that you don't want to say, no to. You want to do all the cool new things, and that's understandable. And I mean, I'm sad that you're not going to be on the show with us.
Mhm.
I'm dealing with it, but I'm not very well. And it's like I was telling you earlier. It's just an excuse to have you back as a guest. As a guest on shows to talk about, I don't know, miniatures or whatever it is that we want to talk to you about.
Right. I mean, I'll be happy to come around as often as y'all send out the call, but yeah, that's
good.
that's,
So every
I
other
do not
Monday,
intend to be a oh, it'd almost be worth it if I wasn't editing.
right.
Well,
I don't know if you all know, but like editing one of these shows takes more time than it takes to record one of these shows easy.
Mhm.
And then there's all the work you have to do, like to get it onto Facebook and make sure that the pod didn't break this week. By the way, the podcast stream breaks about every third week. And yeah, just V, you know how much work it is to keep one of these shows going. And Luis, you've been handling multiple shows yourself. It's a lot of work to keep a podcast going.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately, though, this is a new opportunities for you, and it is sad to see you go. But we don't necessarily want this to be a mourning episode. We want this to be a celebration of you and the network and everything you've done for it and for us and have built together, which is also, hey, part of the reason why we brought Ryan along is you two were the original the original hosts for what
a decade.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So Perram's first episode was May 15th, 2010. So it was No Direction episode 10. It was almost exactly 12 years ago.
Oh my
in
goodness.
fact, had last week been his last day, then he would have been with the network for 12 years and 1 day.
Yeah.
And then the storm came.
I was worried that the storm was trying to make me into the next Book of the Damned. No, don't do this to us.
No, and you've named it.
Are you Absalom in this? Lost Omen's Absalom in this scenario?
Oh boy.
You can't leave yet. Your episode got pushed, and then there's PaizoCon, and we have that stuff to do, and then we've got like special guests coming after that. And we might, I don't know. And then we're just gonna keep pushing it and be like, sorry, Perram, you can't leave yet. We have all this other stuff. You'll have to wait till there's room in the schedule.
Can't leave until after Katie episode 300. Come on, it's so close.
Oh, geez, we have to start thinking about that, don't we?
Yeah, I guess only like 2 years from now or whatever it is.
Oh, okay. Maybe we'll do a clip episode, and then we'll just like the best of Katie.
Those take
because audience love those so much.
It's not like clipping together a video where you could just scroll through and it's like there's an image I recognize with the audio that I want to cue it to. No, it's just here's a bunch of audio bars. Find the good ones.
Yeah,
which is why I edit the show in Premiere and not Audition. Because I use the visuals of what we're doing. In fact, recently Premiere has added the ability to view video, so I have moved it back to Audition. But for like the first 10 years of this podcast, I edited it in video production software just so that I could use the visual cues to know what I was doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, episode 300 clip show is just taking the first 299 episodes and making one, 12-day long episode. It's the ultimate clip show episode.
Oh my gosh.
Really beats to relax and study to.
I'm just imagining DaVinci trying to render it if we did video, or Audacity absolutely crushing my computer. Earlier I was doing a series of edits all in a row, and I didn't close and refresh the project, and all of a sudden it complained my C drive was out of space. The temp file in Audacity was 60 gigabytes.
Oof.
And I was like, okay. Yeah, no, I can't imagine doing 299 episodes of No Direction and just stitching them back to back one after the other.
You'd have to record little segues of that reminds me of the time.
Yeah, that's right. I think you could do that like if we were creating clips along the way, right? So if we're like, here's episode 17 and here's some like fun little moments from episode 17 and we put those in a like clip subfolder and then later we go back and like, that was a funny moment and then you could just grab those and throw it together.
Well,
we
Luis,
need
you
like some sort of
do-
setting premise, like we're all on the road to Paizo Con
But that's
together in
right.
the same car for some reason, even though Luis, you already live in the city and most of us are all across
Well, I
the
got to
country.
drive out to pick you up.
That's
so-
right.
Right, you're picking us up, and then the car breaks down, so we're in a seedy motel, so we have to keep each other entertained by telling stories. And it's
Mhm.
remember when Ryan had that, and then that's how we manage it.
Or we could just do it as a Train Con to Gen Con, the show. I know we've talked about doing Train Con to Gen Con a few times where we all
Was it
try and get
TrainCon
on
to
the
Gen
same
Con?
train.
I thought it was TrainCon to PaizoCon.
Oh, was it? I don't know. It never
just-
happened, so I don't know what it was.
Because trains in the US are so freaking expensive. You can fly twice or train once.
Oh yeah,
basically.
it's the advantage is how long it takes. It'll give us time to get our games in.
Mhm.
Yeah. In that case, yeah, you just be like, all right, well, cool. It'll be a week on the train. I guess we'll just play a lot of games.
Ryan, I feel like you were going to ask something about editing.
Well, yes, because Valiant begins with a little clip recap of the previous episode, and I've always wondered how much time that takes you.
Oh, it takes a while, but I've
What?
taken the I've been kind of smart about it in that I have a different project, which is just all the previously ons from every episode that had one, so I can just see like, oh well, I've already trimmed this down to what it needs to be, and I can just mix and match and grab those as necessary. Obviously that's only going to last me for a while, but it will be nice when, like, in theory, I could go back and grab something from like, hey, previously on, and something from episode 2 that is now relevant, and pop it back in at the beginning. But there's a reason why sometimes I choose not to do it, and expect that the audience can just be like, yeah, they're still kind of doing the same thing, so you don't really need that.
Well, and for me, I find it's easier to do the clips in like an actual play where there's a lot more heavy editing happening, where you're like lining up audio and working on the flow of it, because there's a certain flow to an actual play that it has to have. And I feel like these live shows have a natural flow, right? We have a conversation and it just works out. And there's very little like nipping and tucking and trimming that you have to do to make a really good show. Like we just do it naturally. So for me, my editing process is I usually just have a schedule. I have a notepad open, and if there's audio flubs, like someone sneezes or a door shuts or a siren goes by or whatever it is, I'll just like write down the time code, and then afterward I just go find those issues and just snip those. That's much more
Put them in a
surgical.
folder. There's your clip episode.
There's your clip. It's just a bunch of sneezing and door closing and a motorcycle going by and someone with a really big muffler, and you're like, what is this episode?
Just auto tune all the clipped ums into a new Goblin song.
There you go.
Goblins.
Well, I feel like since we have you both here, and personally, I feel like I only have gotten bits and pieces of the history over the years here and there, I'm gonna ask, how did this all come together? And specifically, hey, how did Perram get all involved in all this stuff? I understand like the 3.5 private sanctuary starting things off, but where did No Direction come from? And then 10 episodes in, Perram joins up. How did that all come to be?
All right. Well, so just to recap, the 3.5 Private Sanctuary came out in response to 4th edition's announcement, and we just wanted to keep going with 3.5 Dungeons and Dragons. And then the Tome Show invited us to do us being me and Jay, my co-host at the time, to do a segment on their Dungeons and Dragons podcast that was just dedicated to Pathfinder. I submit the first one, and he was like, this is basically its own show. You should just do a Pathfinder podcast. And so I did. And the idea was I wouldn't have a co-host. It would just be me and a rotating guest co-host talking about a topic. And Perram was one of the first 5 or so guest co-hosts, because Perram's Spellbook was exactly a project that I wanted. And so got in touch with him. I'm not even sure how I originally got in touch with you, Perram. So if you know that part of the story.
So there was 2 things happening at the same time. I was also brought on before I came aboard as a guest maybe was it to the other show to Private Sanctuary to talk about what it's like to run a game store.
No, I think that was after the fact.
Okay. I did 2 of those interviews before I became a permanent host.
Okay.
So one was about the game store and one was about Perram's Spellbook. And I had also emailed you separately saying, hey, this is a really great show, but you should probably have a regular co-host. That was not me volunteering for the job. I was just like, you should probably just get Jay to do the show full time with you or some other person, because a regular co-host is better than the rotating co-host, how it was going. And because I was already a fan of 3.5 Private Sanctuary at the time. And I was like, this show can be better, Ryan. Just get somebody to do it with you. And then you made the offer a little bit later for me to become a co-host. And I was like, sure. Because at that point in time, I was trying to say sure to as many little projects and favors as I could do at the time.
What is that like?
That is a fun time, isn't it? Yeah. So I was like, and I learned really early on, especially 10 years ago version of the tabletop industry kind of runs on favors. And so being a person that can solve problems puts you into a lot of connections and helps you make a whole lot of friends that then you can ask to interview on your podcast later.
I don't know how well you remember those old episodes of the podcast, but it wasn't this. It was 4 or 5 segments that were just kind of strung together that I was just recording. Some of those segments by myself, some of them were scheduled interviews, some of them had a co-host, and it really gradually the other, because it was Perram and then it was Matthew Leclerc was co-hosting some of those other segments with me. And gradually, Matthew just left the show. Perram started doing co-hosting in all of those segments. And where did we go from there, Perram? How did we make the leap to let's just sit and record a single episode together? I know we didn't go live quite yet.
I think we just wanted to do things more naturally, and the banter parts were getting more and more popular. We're getting a lot of feedback that they just liked us chatting. So let's just do chatting episodes and see how that goes. And that sort of just became what No Direction became. And I think it worked. It y'all seem to like it.
It was also much easier for us. Like,
oh yeah,
when there was all those segments, I had spreadsheets with all the blocks colored in. So that I know, yeah. And that's where we were doing those scripted Millie Narstead, the Gnome on the Go travel segments around Galarian, and just various things like that. And so it was like just finding content for the various segments that just slowly just became an episode. And like there was a string where we weren't even making outlines. Like if it wasn't an interview, or if it was an interview with somebody that we knew exactly what we were talking about, we knew exactly how to wing a 2-hour conversation about a Pathfinder topic.
Yeah, and a lot of that was because we would intentionally avoid chatting with each other about Pathfinder topics.
It's content.
During the week.
It's content.
Yeah, during the week, me and Ryan would talk a lot. It's just like it'd be about nerdy G.I. Joe stuff or cool like videos and video games or whatever we were wanting to talk about. But the second any of us started to talk about Pathfinder stuff, one of us, usually Ryan, would shout content, and then we'd stop.
I've done that too already. I've picked up on that usually before a show, right? So we have like a nice early call time to work out any technical bugs. Usually there's not, and there's plenty of chit chat time. And then, ultimately someone's going to bring up the topic we're about to talk about live on the air. And it's like, that's content. Nope, don't save it.
Right. Because it is not as good the second time around when you're rehashing it. It's never as good. The jokes don't land. Never try to retell a joke to a person that's heard it before.
Oh yeah, that's not.
There's also that moment of awkwardness where you're in the middle of a sentence and it's like, have I already said this? Did I say this earlier in this interview, or did I say it before the whole show started? And I that'll really throw me off my game.
Yeah, and some shows record that pre-tech setup, but I ain't about that life.
No, that's a time where it's like the cameras are off, we're not recording, we're not streaming. Like, let's just get set up and get done what we need to get done.
You tell the guests that we're not supposed to say the F-bomb a whole bunch.
Oh my gosh, we're not.
Podcasts.
Hey.
Sorry, of course we're not. No, that would be bad. We use Galarian swears on this one by Callistria's Garters.
There's also a lot of NDA talk that can't go anywhere, right? So
And also just like network business, right? It's like, hey, when can we schedule this? And when can we do this? And when are you free?
a lot
And
of boring stuff that people
for
say
sure.
they would enjoy, but they don't want to actually hear that.
Yeah, it's not like there's a private sanctum that people are missing out on before the episodes. No, those are really boring. It's half hour of dull, a lot of silence, a lot of just clicking on keyboards.
Yeah.
Our own Alex Agunas is in chat and says, there was, however, the amazing time James got Perram to swear in the Christmas episode. I do not remember that.
Oh, wait,
it might have been
Christmas
edited.
actual play.
Oh, yeah, okay. Wow, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to where that was like bleeped out, if it was bleeped out.
It was bleeped.
Okay. I've had to bleep a few things. That's the
All
other thing I
traces
write
of
down.
that got erased.
Sometimes we have guests
Including
on
James,
who aren't used to the All Ages podcast, and so they'll just like let the expletives fly, and I'm like, all right, 12 minutes and 18 seconds. Oh, 15 minutes and 4 seconds. And I'm just like writing down all the things.
Are we? So it used to be the Wes labeled W for Wes or whatever
for cheeky language.
For cheeky language, and then it was Daigle. I guess, are we still at Daigle, or is it Thirsty now? What should it be?
It should be Thirsty. It should be Thirsty at this point.
Yeah, I think he's the worst offender right now.
He will wear it as a badge of honor.
Well, I think Wes wore it as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
He got his permission to do it, and he was pretty tickled with the whole idea. And the picture that we found for him was so absolutely cheeky.
Well, he's the one in that audio clip I referenced a couple of times where it's just the we set up the little, I had to edit all the seminars, and we set up the little recorders at the seminar tables when we're recording, especially when there's lots of room. So we run around turning on the recorders so we record all the presentations at the conventions. And then one of them, like, I was just scrubbing through the audio and I heard Daigle and Wes talking to each other, and Daigle points at I assume points because I'm listening to audio. I do not have video of this, but he goes, now look at this. This is the No Direction podcast microphone. Now remember, they're an all ages podcast. That F goes, they effing were.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Oh boy. That's great.
I remember one year during the I think it was Gen Con seminars, Adam Daigle was talking and he accidentally let off a swear and he's like, oh, sorry, Ryan. And then that little clip became like the thing at the beginning of basically anything that he was on.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
I remember
rated,
that.
Yeah. Sorry, Ryan.
Yeah. So this is asking you to pick favorites, but hey, what are some of your favorite moments in the last 12 years of being, I mean, it can be, specific episodes you really like, specific guests. It could be things like when you got the Volunteer of the Year award, things like that.
That was cool. It would have been cooler if Perram was there.
I know. I hate that I missed it. But I hadn't started going to PaizoCons yet because like I had budget, especially back then, and it was like I handled Gen Con. Like I made Gen Con my responsibility and Ryan did PaizoCon. And so that was like the division of labor and expense to get those things covered. Because Ryan was very busy with Blind Ferret and other things at Gen Con Ryan worked and full-time, like I barely get to hang out.
Sometimes multiple full-time jobs depending on what I was doing.
Yeah. Oof. And at PaizoCon that's an airplane right away, and like I don't know if I could justify that. And unfortunately this year I can't either, mainly because I had to make the decision before I knew how COVID was going to be working out. I probably may have made a different decision had I known how things would have gone, but unfortunately those decisions have been made. So ironically I'm doing Gen Con this year. Like old times.
Well, good. I'm also doing Gen Con this year, so I will see you there. I am looking forward to that.
What is Gen Con going to be like this year?
I don't know yet what Gen Con's going to be like this year. I made a rudimentary schedule for myself that involves, get this, it's a novel concept. I'm going to play some games and like listen to some seminars that I'm not recording.
Wait, what? That sounds wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's fun. But that all
That's
reminds
good.
me of some of the stuff I really did enjoy. Like some of my favorite memories actually go back to the very earliest days
Mhm.
because we were new and scrappy, and I'm running around with my cell phone turned around backwards and the cheapest recorders Ryan could scrounge up for me. And huh?
Not intentionally the cheapest recorders I could
We
find
couldn't
for you.
afford anything. I remember we got that one good recorder. Neither of us could learn how to use it, so we started hating on it. Like, you can't rely on this one. I've since learned that because you have to hit the record button twice. That's
Yeah.
why we
Oh,
never got that
yeah.
working right.
I remember
Um,
hearing about that, and you're like, "Well, we didn't get that seminar because you have to hit the record button twice." So
I guess.
Yeah, and I
no
now
secrets
use
of Galarian.
one of those recorders every single day for my job, but this makes me giggle. But like back when like Paizo was just getting started, and like listening to like Eric Mona tell me like, man, I hope we sell 5,000 of these things about core rule books, and like sitting down to have lunch with Lisa and just hear about the dream she has for what it'd be like if Paizo actually makes it, and like what the future could be like. And just like when you all were just this, I'm saying you all for Luis and V, because like you all contribute to the game so freaking much. But when Paizo was like tiny and hopeful, and this weird wild bet of a dream was like actually unfolding, and success was happening, and everybody was cheering, and that was kind of my favorite times because we were young and scrappy, and Paizo was young and scrappy, and we kind of grew up together in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know one of my like big driving forces to becoming a fan of Pathfinder before I ever got a chance to write for them was listening to No Direction. I remember like I would be playing Pathfinder Society with folks, and they'd be like, "Oh, this is coming out," and I'm like, "How do you know this?" And they're like, "Oh, they just announced it on this thing," and then like and then they're like talking about it. Well, this is going to be in it, and this is going to be in it. I'm like, "How do you know this?" Like it was on No Direction. They just interviewed Eric Mona about it, and he talked all about it, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And so I started listening, and yeah, so like one of my first like I don't know fandom experiences with listening to the two of you on No Direction and just being like, oh, they are so cool, they know so many things, they get to talk to cool people.
So,
like you.
There you go. But there is the combination of, because we were growing up, because Paizo and No Direction was growing up at the same time, like Perram was explaining. There's like this comfort level between us and even Paizo employees that we haven't met yet. And so we just like, we can ask anything. We're totally comfortable asking anything. We know what's not appropriate to ask. And it really just led to some really interesting interviews. Like I tend to listen to a lot of interviews for Paizo staff, and like not to toot our own horn too much, but a lot of the times they're a lot drier and a lot more introductory. And it just feels like, oh, you could skip all that. You can get right to what are you excited about, and have more energy in the interview and get more interesting things revealed, and assume that your audience, if they can't catch up, then if they're excited, they will want to learn.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing too, is just the rapport of the show and everything, is that fans of the show are people who are excited about Pathfinder, and they usually get the context. So when you're talking to one of the developers about a book that's coming up, like you don't have to explain like, well, what is Pathfinder? Like it's just, we can just get right into like, okay, so there's a bunch of cool feats. You're like, all right, cool.
I know, like one of the things that we told, like, I hate to get to toot the horn thing again from Ryan, but one of the things that we ran into very early when we were interviewing the authors and the creators, especially when we were doing the fiction line, is we would start talking about the book, and then it became the authors were always surprised that we read the book before the interview, and it was like, no, we read this thing cover to cover, and I'm asking detailed questions about the character motivation of this person in the back third of the book, and why this came together that way. And it was so much fun because by being a fan and being a knowledgeable fan and working with people that we respect for creating something awesome, we're able to have conversations deeper than anybody could have with just a casual association of it. And definitely, but No Direction was so inside baseball. Like it is like you do not we we're comfortable being that nerdy and deep with everything, because nobody's going to tune into KD. That, like, why would you listen to KD as a casual fan? It's like, we were all about just like, and what's it like for this incredibly minor goddess that I want to know about, and their motivation that only appears in like 3 scenarios in PFS.
Well, and the other thing too, not just the deep cuts that other fans are really excited about hearing about, but like you were saying, because we have this rapport and know what to ask, I think we often get more, I don't want to say like truthful, that's not the right word, but more contemporaneous, more visceral reactions and answers, and like I think it's able to draw out that excitement and passion for the game more than a lot of other interviewers who are just like, and what's the and when's the book release? Okay, great. It's like, just got to hit my check boxes for this interview. So
I think
It's
there's
a skill
also...
set.
Oh, go ahead, Perram.
Well, it's a skill set I've appreciated learning. Ryan taught me a lot of it, and then moving on to my other show that I started last year, and working again with creators. I'm getting a lot of the same comments from the creators that this was a really good interview. This was a deeper interview than they expected. Like, talking to artists that are creating miniatures, or companies that are involved in that aspect of the gaming space. I'm leaning very heavy on skills I learned here at No Direction of how to do an interview that's more interesting and dry, and not just by the numbers or covering the same old boilerplate.
yeah, I definitely agree. Any proficiency I have at all at doing this show is 100% to the two of you, and any technical proficiency I have to doing this show is 100% from Perram, who has literally taught me everything I know about this. Occasionally someone else is like, you could do it this other way, and I'm like, that doesn't really fit our needs, but thanks. Like, everything we do is something that Perram helped me to learn, start to finish, all of the producing, all of the polishing, all of the everything. So thank you.
Luis, were you about to say something?
Oh, I was just gonna mention the fact that you've been at it for so long means that you've had guests. There are inevitably new people working at Paizo that you do go through the, hey, tell us about yourself, how'd you get into gaming and all that stuff, but you bring people on so often that you can't help but get into other topics at that point, right? Like the very first time you brought, I don't know, Daigle on, I'm sure there was a little bit about, tell us about your history and all that stuff, but you bring him on a dozen, 2 dozen times. I don't know how many it would have been. I mean, that's old hat by that point, by the third time around, right? So like you can't help but get into more casual conversation and more in-depth focus on the business and stuff like that, which is something I was appreciated, because as a developer, I've done my fair share of interviews and the rounds, and there's a lot of like, well, yeah, let me tell you about this and what this book is. But there are some places where I've gone back a couple of different times. I've done some interviews on, wouldn't you know it, on No Direction, and other places, and like the places where I come back, more than just like the one time. It's always, I think, leads to more interesting conversations. So building that rapport, and in some cases, some direct friendships, right? We have the likes of Crystal and Jason Keeley and stuff, who are great friends of the network and continue to come on, even though in some cases they're not even working with Paizo anymore, but they're still just such great people in the industry. So, things that you were able to foster, you two, that we're able to foster, and we can still kind of reap the benefits of even today.
I mean, like, a lot of podcasts joke with like the friend of the network title, but we kind of mean it, because we have so many people that are genuine friends because of the podcast, and having been lucky enough and to have so many great creators like yourself, Luis, and like UV, and come on the show again and again, and get to have those really cool, deep interviews and hang out at conventions, means that, like, in a lot of ways, the extended Paizo family became part of like pseudo cast to KD, especially some of like Wes or some of the people that we've had on a bunch of times. That and that was kind of part of the goal, was we wanted people to get to know the creators personally, because back when we first started doing that, there was some companies that were operating in even a little bit before that, under like they didn't want the individual creators to get attention. Like famously, like TSR was like very against it, and a lot of the people that we chatted with, especially in the early days of Paizo, were TSR alums that have been through the opposite side of that, to where do not give them attention. The brand is all that matters, and we're like, no, the people who make these games are the ones that matters. Let's get the rock star lens on them.
Yeah, I think that was a smart move too, because then people would get excited about a developer or and other people, and you're developing those assets. You're making those assets more important, just as important or more so than an iconic character or a location or an NPC that reoccurs. And really, it just helps build up your company. So I don't know. I think that's good, and you two definitely. You contributed to that. You made that happen.
It's funny, actually. There's a lot of seminars at PaizoCon where it's Dragon Magazine alumni and just people that have been in the industry for a long time telling old stories, and it's filling in history that I didn't know about but was kind of there for. And so it's I've known Stan Brown for a long time. He was one of the earliest guests, like Stan with an exclamation point. But it's through these different seminars that I'm like, oh, Stan's actually had a much bigger impact on my life than I realized, since long before I met him. Owen is another example of that. I've been reading Owen's stuff since before I knew who Owen was. And it's kind of like, it's kind of sad that it took them leaving TSR and Wizards of the Coast and getting outside of the company that they did their most, their earliest prolific work. It took them getting out of that for the spotlight to be on them, and for us to realize just how important they are to us and to the hobby.
And now that's kind of the norm, in a lot of good ways and bad ways. But I know a lot of authors are talking about, you have to live in the public light now, and you have to market yourself on socials and do these interview rounds now. And some people don't enjoy that aspect, and I can understand that. If you came to this to be, I want to write cool books, not I want to be a part-time TV star. But at the same time, it's just it was kind of fun to be an early part of something that then I noticed became a trend.
Yeah, for us, it's what came naturally. The podcast is very organic creation that, our success is not entirely organic. There was a lot of planned and purposeful decisions that were made, mostly on your part, Perram, to make sure that we continue to grow. But we aren't forced to do this. We were doing this because this was our interest. But I sympathize with authors who now are getting into and realizing, oh, well, if I want to write, I not only have to produce a podcast, I have to compete with the 10,000 other podcasts that similar authors are putting out.
That's true. The space has gotten a lot more crowded, and so the fact that the two of you have been doing this for 12 plus years just shows what pioneers you are, I guess. Especially now that the format has changed to more of what No Direction already does.
So
I used to joke that it's just our success is that we won't quit.
There's something to that.
All right, so Luis, earlier you asked about certain highlights, and it got me just going through the archives on the website. And so I found one episode called The Live Era Begins. This was February 13th, 2013. Oh, wow. So that means we were about 3 years in when we finally started doing live episodes, which I believe we started on Google, whatever Hangouts. Google's live stream was at the time.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Yeah, we recorded via Hangouts, and we did not do that to get video. Video happened by accident because we did it. We did it because Skype sucks so much trying to record a podcast on. It is absolutely the worst voice software ever.
It's pretty bad.
It was betraying us. We would get robots, we'd get synchronous time things. It would just randomly disconnect our guest 2 or 3 times an episode. And we're like, let's try out anything else. And we tried out lots of other software. We did Google Hangouts at the time was like great. Like, wow, it works. And the audio, like the video gets wonky, but the audio is always rock solid. And that's all we cared about. But like, and it's like a side effect. It will happen to be live on YouTube at the same time. So we started recording. That went really well. And then I think we did a special that was live. Then we did another live special. And then we started doing regular live episodes because it also made the production pipeline super simple, which was fantastic because the production pipeline used to be we take all these individually recorded audio tracks because, as I said earlier, Skype sucks and we can't use the Skype recording of anything. We barely understand each other, much less being able to put it out on a podcast. So it was like, I'm recording in Audacity, you're recording on Audacity. We're trying to walk a guest who may or may not be computer proficient in how to download, install, and use Audacity. And then with Hangouts, it was like, oh, we've got this nice live recorded everything that we can edit on, and that's great. And that's why one of the big motivations was we went live for efficiency's sake and not so that we would get video.
But it also challenged us to be better because we didn't want the live thing to just be a side effect. We wanted it to become a component of the show. And so we didn't want to flub. We didn't want to pause. We didn't take bathroom breaks. That's something that I remember at least one of our guests was like, can I take a pause right now? Like, we've been talking for an hour. It's like, you probably do need a break. That's just something forgot people take.
Yeah.
We're just used to soldiering along for, like 30-minute call time ahead of time and a 2-hour show and then another 30-minute after show now. And it's just like a solid 3 hours of getting to chat with people. And it's great. But it's like, wait, you wanted a break in there? Oh, okay.
How dare you?
I sneak one in between the episode and the private sanctum, but
it's understandable.
I do that too, for sure.
And here's something that the audience probably doesn't know, but especially in the early couple of years of No Direction, it was a constant battle of wills between me and Ryan on how long the show should be, because Ryan really liked sub 1 hour shows, and I was a huge fan of This Week in Tech and Giant Bomb and these long format podcasts with lots of banter where they're 3 hour plus episodes, and that's where my podcast love was. And eventually Katie kind of fell on the 2 hour plus side of that fence, but early on we were always like, well, let's do this, but we can't do this. And I'm like, can we sneak in a new segment? Then I can get it longer.
The thing about those, Perram, is they usually have someone else that edits those.
That's what I was going to say. So what originally happened when I was the editor, we were doing these 1 hour, 1 hour and a half maybe episodes, and Perram was creeping in more and more content. And so it's like, Perram, we're pushing 3 hour episodes on average at this point. I can't keep doing it. Can you do the editing? And it's like, yes. And then we started creeping back down to a 2 hour episode.
Well, what's really funny too is how many episodes y'all are interviewing somebody and you're like, well, we're at the hour time. That's all the time you promised us. So if you need to go, and they're like, no, I'm going to stay. You're like, I guess we'll talk about this thing for another 40 minutes. Okay, well, we're going to do news and stuff. I'll stick around for that. Oh, okay, cool. So our guest is going to stick around and do news. Let's talk about news. It's just, it extended it because I think so many of your guests really enjoyed talking to you that they want to stick around and talk some more. Let's just keep talking about this cool product or a book that's coming out or whatever it is. Oh, you're doing the new. Well, that's fine. I have things to say about that. I'll hang around and do the news segment with you.
Well, I think a lot of it is when you're booking somebody's time and you say, can we have an hour? They're like, that's a lot of my day. And then when you're in the podcast, an hour flies by.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if
I know what you're going to say,
a bit naughty of me to mention, but
oh no.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't give that spiel, and there's reason, and I'll leave the audience to figure that one out.
Sometimes people are very busy and we don't want to suggest that they feel pressured that they stick around or anything, right?
Of course.
Exactly. That's what we're thinking of. I'm trying to think back to my memories of KD, and I'm gonna first admit I think I've mentioned it before, but I didn't. You were not originally my first choice for a Pathfinder podcast.
Oh.
Back in the day when I was looking for stuff, and primarily I was looking for information on like adventure paths and like how to run them and like pitfalls and the like. I was listening to the Chronicles Pathfinder podcast. You know, a seemingly long dead podcast at this point, but they were talking like Kingmaker and stuff and giving you in-depth reviews and being like, oh, spoilers, hey, with this section, with this encounter, blah 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 blah. And then they stopped like putting episodes out as podcasts do, and eventually I just searched around and I think eventually found No Direction. And it wasn't until I realized that you had the con recordings that I was like, oh wait, I can learn about all this stuff that's coming. That that was great. But I think I remember at least the earliest episode I can remember, at least looking back to this list here, is apparently No Direction number 72, the Crystal Bestiary, where you brought Crystal on when she was still a digital product specialist.
Perram, do you remember how that episode started?
No, how?
We thought we were talking about virtual tabletops and stuff, and when we realized, like, after pressing record and going live, that Crystal is not the guest we thought she was, we had to improvise very quickly.
Yeah.
We probably did about 5 awkward minutes of like, I
think I remember
don't
that.
know how to talk about that. And so we just got to know Crystal a little bit better. And then that's, luckily, we have a great chemistry with Crystal. And so that became a really good episode that started one of the worst possible, like worst case scenario started.
There was a, more so than other episodes I can recall, there was a lot of diving into, okay, what does a digital product specialist do for Paizo?
If it's not virtual tabletops, then it's, help me out here.
Turns out it's like art for the most part. But I remember those early days of listening to No Direction, and the No Direction, or the No Question segment that still existed back in the day.
No questions?
No questions.
And I just remember thinking, oh man, I know some of these answers. I know what the correct answer is. Hold on. Ryan doesn't know. He got it wrong. Or the other thing that myself. The other thing that would happen is you'd be trying to remember the name of a product, and you'd get like very close. Ultimate Wilderness was recalled as Wilderness Adventures a lot of the time from my history, and every time I'd be yelling at the podcast like, no, it's Ultimate Wilderness, and I keep telling myself someday I'll get to be on there and I'll remember every product name. And now here I am, probably at some point gonna run into that same problem where I can't remember, even though I literally work for the company. But I remember those first sort of like, I know just a little bit more, and like that super fan in me, like I want to get on there and talk about Pathfinder and you know, be part of that. Eventually I did, you know, join the network. And my very first episode, I was nervous as heck. And then I let Alex talk over me a lot more than I really should have.
I'm God. I never do that.
Yeah, no. That was just me being a timid first timer on an episode. So I feel like I've learned, but it's kind of fun to think about, like, oh, where was I when I started? And hey, wouldn't you know it, Ryan and Perram gave me a chance to come on, talk about Villain Codex, and I guess I didn't flub it so bad that they decided to let me on a second time.
I mean, the list of people we never let on a second time intentionally is very small, and I'm not going to list it.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of the time, yeah, it's just like it gets so busy that you're like, oh my gosh, we haven't talked to so-and-so in 2 years? Okay, we have to have them back on, because you just, you know, you kind of get down the rabbit holes with whatever the product release schedule is and whatever's happening. Now with Aaron's position, it's a bit more formal. We're like, hey, Aaron, we need a guest to talk about this. And Aaron's like, all right, I'm going to give you this person. You're like, okay, great. We'll talk to John. All right, you got it. And, you know, sometimes you have to be like, hey, so can we talk to so-and-so? Because she's not been on like 6 months or a year, and we want to talk to her again. But yeah, it's hard, especially with being every other week, and like how many creatives there are out there at Paizo, at other companies that are doing very cool things in this space, to see people on a regular basis anymore. You know, everything's gotten so big.
Yeah, well, especially as more manager positions came up, those people kind of got shunted away from the topical content we would be covering. And so like someone like Daigle was someone we would have on every year. And then he became a managing developer, a developing manager, one of those multi.
He's now director of game development, in fact.
Right.
Yeah. Could have him on. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
Sounds really cool.
And Mark Moreland, I love Mark. I love chatting with Mark every chance I get. But like got in the position managing like licenses and stuff, and it's like that doesn't put you in the spotlight often, and we can't chat with you, and it's sad.
Yeah, Mark's almost the opposite problem where any episode could be a Mark episode. He fits into almost any topic just because he covers so much of Pathfinder.
He's so knowledgeable. Well, and then now he's over at Roll for Combat. So like, if there's a Roll for Combat thing, then we can get Mark on now. But otherwise,
oh no, you're thinking Sifter. We're talking
that's Sifter.
Oh, I was talking. Oh, I'm sorry, I got lost. I was thinking Sifter this whole time because he's so knowledgeable about all things in Pathfinder. And Starfinder, you could literally have him on either show to talk about anything. But yeah, Mark Moreland also is super knowledgeable because now he has his fingers on literally every project. So,
are there any guests that you had never had a chance to bring on that you're like, oh man, I wish we had them
Wayne
on?
Reynolds.
Wayne Reynolds.
Oh yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
So I've gotten to chat with him a bunch, but never for a show. Like,
he's the busiest man ever.
Is crazy charismatic. He would make a perfect interview. Yeah, I'm sad.
If we manage to get Wayne on, we'll bring you on as a guest co-host.
Thank you. And then we've been trying since like year 3, so it's like it's frequently I've been trying to get Wayne.
All right, we'll see what we can do.
Mark Sifter's in chat, and he's saying that at one point there was a 4-year gap between his appearances, and that's another wild thing where it just feels like you have a guest on, and then you have them on again, and you don't realize just how much time has passed.
I think part of that was the product alignment with like, oh, who's the lead of this book or whatever, and it just never worked out that Mark was also the lead that was relevant at the time.
And I will admit, like, they kind of all the episodes kind of start bleeding together into one amorphous blob of episode in my head these days.
An amalgam. It's an amalgam of episodes where all the memories just fuse into one memory.
I mean, there's like, I've recorded well over 1,000 hours of podcasting for the network. It's a lot.
I wonder if you've hit that 10,000 mastery hours by this point.
Yeah,
if you count editing,
Lauren one
Lord,
time,
yes.
we were trying to calculate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
and there's also other episodes where you were doing adventurous and stuff like that. You were on mic for probably 10,000 hours by this point.
Oh sure.
Oh my goodness. Trying to think back of like,
go ahead.
But getting ready for this episode, like I was furiously like researching because I thought you were going to hand me like some of the hard questions, like, well, what was your favorite book? And then I'm like, I'm going to stall because I won't know the answer to that.
I want to give you a hard time, but of the 3 of us, which one's your favorite? No, I'm just kidding. Don't answer that.
Lauren's
You're allowed
not
to
on
say
here.
Me.
Oh, Lauren's not on here. Well, of course it's Lauren.
I mean, actually, I care about all of you.
I know you do.
I would commit war crimes for Ryan.
Wow, well, hold on a second. I appreciate the compliment, but I'm worried about the ramifications.
I know you have such a long and famous history together that I'm not surprised. Sorry, I'm still wrapped up in all the emotion. Because
have we gotten to the emotional part?
I don't know. I'm been
It's
there.
Been more
I've
than
been
20 minutes.
fighting it off. It's been more than 20 minutes. I'm allowed. But I don't know. I'm gonna miss you.
Yeah.
I'm already missing this so much. Like unofficially, I've kind of not been here for 3 months, so I've mentally like I've gone through the mental like rigors to prepare for it already, and I know for a lot of our listeners that's not the case, so I apologize for that. But like so I can understand. And like I said, I don't intend to be a stranger, so do yell anytime you miss me. As long as I don't have to edit the podcast, I'll be fine.
Yeah, I think it's a little easier for me this week than last. As some of you know, last week there were technical issues and power outages and things, and we couldn't get everyone together, and so we decided to postpone. And I was a mess last week. And I think in a way that helped me sort of address and deal with a lot of those feelings, so I can be more professional this week.
I am curious, because this has been a lot of looking backwards, and I want to look forwards.
Oh, goodness.
What do you all predict? Like, this is like a decade plus of Pathfinder and KD. So what do you all think a decade from now Pathfinder looks like?
Well, and that's an hour, so that's the show. If you need to find the path, you need no direction. I'm just kidding.
I'm asking a decade ahead so that like I can't possibly be bumping into any NDAs, because as far as you all plan ahead, I doubt it's that far.
A decade ahead. I don't.
I mean, I hope there's some kind of TV property by then, right? A cartoon or a live action show or something.
A syndicated low budget live action fantasy show a la Xena Warrior Princess.
Great. I love it.
Wow. Cool. Yeah. All right. Shoot, 10 years from now, I want to find a way to do actual plays where we're all in the same room instead of remote. Like, even if it's one of those things where like, well, we're doing the No Direction retreat and we're playing through a whole module, over the week, or the weekend or whatever, and recording it. And then we'll just like cut that up into episodes over the next 6 months. It's just cool stuff like that. I think that would be really neat. I want Train Con. I want that. Train Con to
Train
Paizo
Con
Con.
would be amazing. Or, maybe we could just rent a train cart.
Well, you can
that
rent
doesn't go anywhere.
If you all was willing to make your way down this way, we in the city next to mine, we can rent a castle. And not a small one. It's an entire castle. They filmed Macbeth in it.
Oh my gosh. That'd be pretty cool.
I think at PaizoCon 2032, they're going to announce a classic throwback release where they reprint the first core rulebook, bestiary, and game mastery guide, but as tiny little, like 1.5 inch by 1 inch books.
Oh my gosh.
The logical evolution of the pocket editions.
I was just thinking they'll have the hollow editions by then, right? Where you just put the little chip on the table and hit the button, and like the book opens up in holographic form, and you just sort of swipe to change the pages. But what will No Direction be doing in 10 years? That's a long time. But yeah, I would love it if the network continued to grow to the point where we could do some like expensive production value stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I meant by like
hire an editor to edit the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in 10 years' time, we'll have an editor that does this, and we won't have to worry about it. And we'll have a producer that just pushes all the buttons, and I won't have to be constantly checking all the gears and gauges while I'm trying to be like, I know which mark you're talking about.
In all the years I never even asked for an editor. I think I would never have wanted, like, why take my toys away?
Yeah.
I mean, I get that even in some cases. With like Valiant, I can't expect anyone to know exactly what I would want to keep or things like that. But Legend lore is far less like it's a much more straightforward show, right? It's just a back and forth. It's not trying to tell a story, so editing it isn't losing potentially any of that narrative. But but I do value all that I've learned in editing stuff and like all over the years with like slowly picking things up. Most recently I learned how to do like motion tracking in After Effects to make a silly thing to share with a friend, right? Like the
nice.
little things that you like pick up over the years as you do these kind of things.
Next, you must learn the broomstick to lightsaber trick.
Maybe. I'm sure there's even just like a thing that a plugin that you run anymore.
There's definitely an app that scans for broomsticks and turns them all into lightsabers.
I think in 10 years, we'll be reviewing things like Pathfinder video games, Starfinder video games, and saying things like, that's just derivative of the last 3 titles they did.
I mean, 10 years from now, we'll be talking about 3rd edition, and one of us will be someone will claim that one of us hates 3rd edition, even though we just have some frustrations with the playtest.
That's what Mark that's what Mike Seifter just said in the chat, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll take like 8 years until we can get rid of that false claim rumor. It's like, no, I like it. I just don't like this one rule. Like there's one rule I'm not happy about. That actually happened to me with Starfinder. I remember
Starfinder. Has that happened to you, V? Has that actually happened to you?
I know what happened to you.
How did I get Ryan has pointed this out. Like Ryan has gotten the reputation as the one who dislikes 2E and Perram likes it. Perram's the one who's gone on 2 epic half-hour rants on things that I thought was ruining 2E.
One of them totally blindsided me. I thought we were having a very good episode. It was right after we reviewed the Advanced Player's Guide, which is great. Seemed to be positive overall. And then, just something really hit you where you did not want to be hit.
Was that the organized play rant? Like there was like an organized.
Yeah, that might have been.
You had one of those about all the locked like ancestries and stuff in organized play, where you're like, I just want to play a whatever uncommon thing that's really not that uncommon, and it's like, nope, that's locked. You have to have points. And it's like, I did that recently when we still thought we could get tickets for PaizoCon. I was supposed to play with Helen, and we were going to play our Vellum and Lace characters as little like first level Pathfinder Society characters.
Oh, fun!
Except Jellica is an Aasimar essentially, and I don't have enough points for an Aasimar. So I was like, well, throw that idea out the window. And there were all these like conspiratorial things we were doing, like, all right, so this particular scenario is really easy. So what if you just GM it 3 times and it's replayable, and we'll just like blast through it in like 3 or 4 hours? And it was like, I'm not going to game the system to play the character. I don't have enough points. I'm not going to do it. It's fine.
But on more positive notes.
On positive notes.
Yeah. So I was just thinking about Perram's question about things in 10 years. And I definitely think Paizo and Pathfinder is in a good place. Like I've been seeing a lot of just chatter on Twitter, and I even saw a YouTube video recently. Let me just double check the name of the channel. Icarus Games, where people are saying that there's some frustration with 5e's limitations, and Pathfinder 2nd edition answers most of their frustrations, which was not, I don't believe, Pathfinder 2nd edition's design goal, but it just happens to be a good place for them to be in the industry, where people will play Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition because that is still the new hotness. It is still what all the actual plays are pointing them towards. And then the next step, when they're looking for more depth to their rules, Pathfinder 2nd edition is there and has these cool rules and has this really forward-thinking way of treating ancestries and the world and politics and how it all intersects. Like that, I think it's like there's just a very positive vibe around 2nd edition right now, and that's really cool to see. And I just think Pathfinder is going to continue to make its own fan base and to grow and develop itself as not just an alternative to Dungeons and Dragons, but as Pathfinder.
Right.
And not just like, and I think 2nd edition is important for this, not just, oh, it's D&D 3.5 and then they change some stuff. Like it's its own game now. And I think that people are finally seeing that, and it's growing out of that reputation of like, it's an updated Dungeons and Dragons. It's like, no, it's different.
And Luis, I think you deserve a lot of credit for that, because the Lost Omens line, like I am not a settings guy. Like you were talking about how we were not covering the adventure paths in the early episodes of No Direction. That's because I just cared about the rule sets. I thought generic fantasy setting is fine. Rules are what makes it cool, and Perram coming on influenced that, brought in more and more campaign setting stuff. But really, it wasn't until Lost Omens that I really became excited about the next campaign setting book that would be coming out for Pathfinder.
Yeah, like I when I started like listing off, when preparing like the list of my favorite books, like it was very quickly becoming, I can't just say all the Lost Omens books, Perram.
Hey,
You've got
cat. I'll
Yeah.
take that.
It's like, well, Legends is probably the best book they've written ever, and Magambia is not Magambia. It's not Magambia.
Wangi
It's
Expanse.
Wangi Expanse, but even Magambia is like the cool part of it. But Wangi Expanse is probably second place, but they're punching it out for the top slot. And like when I was like, well, what about first edition? There's lots of first edition books I really love, and I think my favorite first edition book, because it's a series, is the original softcover Book of the Damned / Chronicle of the Righteous set, but not the hardback version, because the hardback version stripped out a lot of the character that was intentionally put into the Book of the Damned, which is what you all have put back into the hardcovers with Lost Omens. And it's for the same reason. It's like, this is a book that makes me feel like I know what it's like to be in this world. And that got stripped out with the hardcover version of it. And then, but you all put that stuff back in with your and Eleanor's tenure at in charge of those books.
I'm gonna have to bring you on to talk about the travel guide.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's been announced, right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yes,
It's a
we are
couple
going to
months
keep
away.
a seat warm for you.
It's a couple of months away. Oh, yeah, that is something I'm still not used to, of just not being in touch with when everything is coming out and what books I need to read by what date.
Knights of Lastwell is out Wednesday, so yeah.
I'll see, and that feels like it's been out forever.
Really, I was just reading that the other day. Oh, that's right. We got advanced copies.
Yeah, that is
Boy,
a good book.
Being a
That is-
broadcaster has its
That is a
negative stuff.
fun dance you've got to do when you learn about stuff you're not supposed to talk about. Like,
Yeah.
that whole
And I
year
gotta do it
stretch I had
for
to
like
do about
8 months
second
longer
edition.
than all of you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Seriously, yeah, you work on something and you're excited about it and you can't tell anyone. And then months later, there's like back channels talking about it's going to be announced and you're like, oh, and you get excited and then they announce it and people are talking about it. And then it's like, but I still don't know what they did about my product and they didn't say my name. So I can't talk about the fact that I worked on it. You just go, yes, that sounds very interesting. And then you finally get your advanced copy and you can like, oh, that's what the developer, oh, thank goodness the developer fixed that because that was not great. And you're looking through all the stuff you did and all the stuff everyone else in the book did. And you're like, oh, this is such a beautiful book. I still can't talk about it. And then you have your show. And these days they're like, you can talk about this one chapter. And you're like, okay, I'm really excited about other things in the book, but they'll have to wait. And it's just like compartmentalizing that information. It's like, I can't even reference another thing if it hasn't been released. You're like, just want to talk about it.
Sounds like a tough time.
Oh,
It
I have
is,
some fun
Luis.
speculation. Luis, you might not be able to participate, but what would we want to see third edition look like? Like, what changes would a Pathfinder 3 even be like?
I'm sure everyone has their things for like. Let's say that third edition looks very similar to 2e, right? People decide, oh, we want to keep 2e going that same way, but there's like lots of little tweaks that I'm sure, you know, Mark is in chat. All the designers have like their own little like, oh, I wish this could have worked out, or we had to decide on that, right? As a committee, but my vote would have still been with X, Y, or Z. Like there's lots of little tiny changes that I can even talk now, right? Like there's like I recently complained about a lack of conditions. I wish we have drained for con, we have enfeebled for strength, we have clumsy for dex, and then we have stupefied to cover int and whiz and charisma.
Right.
I feel like we should have one for each, but you know, that I wasn't there, I wasn't part of that, but you know, little things like that. I feel like that would that be a third edition? Would that be a 2.5? Who knows? But there's always like tiny things that I keep running into.
Well, and I feel like as a Modian advocate, I can understand why there's only one condition, because like strength and dex and con all do different things for a martial character or for any character, but specifically for martial characters weight these differently depending on how their build is and etc. But the mental condition of stupefied, it's like casters all do the same thing with their mental stat when it comes to casting. It's only like skills and other ancillary things that it really makes a difference. But when it comes down to mechanics, your casting stat's your casting stat. And so by having 3 different ones, it'd be like, oh, good, I'm just forgetful. So my int's down, but I'm a charisma caster, so I don't care. And this makes it so you can be like, all right, stupefied is all of them. And this is the bad condition for casters. And it's honestly it's not that terrible.
I have my reasons for wanting that, which I
Yeah.
can't get into.
Oh.
But little things like that.
I like the comments in chat right now where Mark Seifter's saying doing an infinite for it. And it's like an infinite for 3 conditions. But Dustin comes in right after with like infinite conditions. That's the name of the book.
I should mention that Mark also said I was right. So I just...
Sorry, I gloss over that.
I believe him.
But like I get some of the choices that were made in second edition. There's some I don't like, and I don't want to, turn this into the rag on second edition fest. But there's like Mark was saying in chat, there's tweaks the designers always want to make even after the fact, and constantly improve the system, especially now that it's in people's hands and they're playing it. So
right.
I have
and
faith.
Also, evolution doesn't mean a condemnation of what came before it. This is a mistake 4E made in its marketing.
Neanderthals.
It's like, oh, silly gnomes is a playable race. Who cares about that? What about grapple? See how silly your old game was? Buy our new game. It's better. Good grief. Nobody ever make that marketing mistake again, gang. But like, I would go big. I would go big with a 3rd edition change and kind of like, because I know from talking with many of the designers that there are lots of things that y'all been wanting to do for ages and not done because of respecting the legacy of the game that came before it. That is less and less important the further down this rabbit hole you go. So like some obvious choices be like get rid of the ability scores and just keep only mods. The bonuses. Dude, like Mutants and Masterminds made that jump years ago. It was the right choice to make. I would replace all of the saving throws, and
interesting.
All the saving throws would be gone, and in their place you would keep their names, Fortitude, Reflex, and Will, but they would just be hit points. So you would have Fortitude for physical hit points, Exhaustion hit points would take your Reflex down, and Will would be mental hit points, and that's how
like mental damage is like mental hit points. Interesting.
Then you don't need conditions, because then you can just do lots of mental damage to things and take people out that way.
Be interesting.
And I would get rid of all classes.
This
is just being silly, and I would just I would just go pure like, or you'd go the D20 modern method, and there's just 6 classes like Starfinder, and
they're named after the statistics.
Yeah.
Like, I am strength.
And then I'm going to take this ability from this class and this ability from that, and just because you're already halfway there with 2nd edition, you could just continue that feat tree is everything path. See, my version of 3rd edition would be a very wacky place.
I've thought about that. I have a classless system that's been bouncing around in my head, or at least a way to make 2E classless.
Me and Alex were making one, and then 2nd edition got announced, and we stopped production on it.
Right.
Like we got like fairly deep into that design process for that system too. Like a classless mod for 1st edition.
I think the one big thing I would do is make Leshy's core race or core ancestry. Right, like just lean further into what makes Pathfinder, right?
100%. Yeah, making Goblin's core I think was a great idea, because like Pathfinder's iconic creature is a goblin, and everyone loves Leshy's. So yeah, let's just have the fun races or ancestries. Alex says he'd kill Rarity.
She's like top 3 favorite ponies.
I'd kill Alignment. I think that's an obvious one.
I'd like more options that are just +1 to a thing, and I never have to think about it again. That is one of the things that trips me up the most about 2nd edition, is that every option is a thing I have to remember I have. Whereas if it's just +1 to a thing, I put on the character sheet and I walk away. And when I'm looking at my numbers, it's, oh, that's a higher number. I'm good at that. And that inspires my character. And so I know there's this thought that numbers are bad for role playing, but for me, it's like, okay, there's my high number. So this is my character, and I can more easily get into their head. Whereas it's like, here's 50 things where it's keyword to a bow. It's like, okay, I know I'm good at bows, but in what ways am I good at bows? And when the situation comes up, I have to remember that I'm good at bows or find it on my character sheet fast enough that I'm not slowing down the whole game, just trying to remember these million bow options that I have. If I was just +1 when bows are involved, that would save me a lot of time and just feeling bad about myself.
That's one of the things I really do appreciate about what 5th edition has done, where if for those not familiar, 5th edition, when you would get to a feat level, you can either get a static bonus to your character or go get a feat that lets you do a cool thing.
Interesting. That might be okay. The problem with the +1 thing is that they keep designing to the theoretical maximum. So if you can get +1 to things, then the theoretical maximum goes up, and then everything gets harder. So now you have to have the +1 or you can't do the thing. And I think that is easily solved by just not rebalancing to having the +1.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Please don't do that. Like that, I really wish for the 2.5 that the math gets readjusted to the theoretical medium, not the theoretical maximum.
Yeah, I would say, what is the maximum somebody who doesn't specialize in it would have? Like, right? So you're like, what's the maximum to hit? You're like, I don't know. What could a muscle wizard get? And you're like, oh, all right, let's figure out what that is. And then that's the average, right? Because a fighter is going to be better than a muscle wizard, and like most wizards are probably not going to be muscle wizards, so they'll be worse than the average, and then that's probably pretty good. So without specializing, what's the best you can get? Okay, that's our target number, and then I think it'd be better. The other thing, because it just ends up too challenging otherwise, and then things like severe and extreme become like almost impossible, and so it's like I don't know, make it easier, and then extreme means something.
Yeah, it doesn't work for 2nd edition, but like if there was some theoretical class that was just okay at everything, that very bardy class that you could just balance around, and then what would a bard?
You're not playing a medium, you're playing a median.
Gosh, right. I miss your puns.
Oh, thanks. Oh, Luis, I appreciate it when you were talking about Knights of Last Wall. When you were talking about that, I wrote the backgrounds, and you were like, so there's a lot of wordplay.
Yeah, it's great. You're lucky you had me as a developer for it. I think a lot of it would have gotten changed.
Oh, thank you.
To this day, even when I'm not on the podcast and I see like a meme for a bad pun, I still go, dang it, Ryan.
That's funny. I know. Ryan's puns are so good. I try, but I don't have that same level of proficiency. I'm only trained. I'm not legendary. A master. Legendary. He might be legendary.
Wow. Have I reached legendary status already?
I don't know. What level are you?
12.
No, you're not legendary.
Only if you're a fighter.
Oh, I'm definitely not a fighter. We've talked about this.
He's a lover, not a... Wait, no, sorry. Nope. Went the wrong direction.
Perram, how much Pathfinder are you playing these days?
Right now, 0. And that's a lot of one of the motivating factors is that all of my potential venues of playing Pathfinder, except for through the network or through things that are basically still the network, have dried up. And COVID's to blame for all of that. It's like the PFS is gone in this region. It could not survive the local store shutting down as long as they did, and my local group because of shifting people around and various things, the campaigns couldn't survive continuing going, and so it was like, something I used to do literally 4 or 5 times a week, I'm getting to do only once every other week, or and it's work. And anything I do through the network, I love you all to pieces, but it's work. And I can't get my brain to not classify it as work. So it becomes instantly 75% less fun.
I mean,
Also sounded like
I was gonna say that's the reason I started the Abomination Vaults game for us. That is like, this is specifically not content. It could be. There's a bunch of No Direction folks and other like, writers and such from and other folks in the Pathfinder verse that have a public presence, but it's not, because we all just need time to like have fun with it instead of like, oh, we got to be professional and this is a show and we have to make sure we say the right thing and we're always on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Being always on is exhausting.
Unless you're an extrovert.
I am not. I am actually very much an introvert. You take me away from the microphone and I go to my little dark corner, grab my book and hide.
Aw.
You enjoy your dark corner, Perram.
Well, you need to turn a light on in there. Otherwise, how are you going to paint things? You can't see in the dark.
I will admit that No Direction has made my painting better, because when I get to use like studio lighting to paint under, it is so much better.
Oh yeah.
And gang, I've been painting a whole lot of stuff like lately. Like this cool Wolfie Boy is probably one of my newest better pieces.
Yeah, that is very cool. I am always so just like in awe of your painting skills.
Yeah, that's the only good thing to have come out of this whole pandemic, forcing me to go full hermit mode, is like, well, I've got a whole lot of time to learn how to wet blend.
I thought you were almost going to say this is the only good thing that came out of this whole No Direction thing.
Oh,
wow.
Oh my gosh. Jeez.
Oh.
Brutal.
See, Dungeon Novice in chat also thought that. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. The best thing that have come up out of No Direction is getting to know so many awesome people like you and getting to spend time with you all.
What are you going to miss the most?
That, hanging out with you all so much.
So
honest, and to be full transparency, I would have probably left 2 or 3 years ago if it wasn't for how awesome you all are.
Aw. I'm glad we got another few years of Perram behind the mic.
Well, the good thing is that you could still hang out with us. Like, you're going to Gen Con, you're going to hang out with V. We're all just a message away.
Excellent. Yep. Ooh.
And Abomination Vaults. Show up to Abomination Vaults.
So there was like a second phase of getting used to you not being on the network anymore. And that was like, I'm never going to play with Glanville again. And that was like, oh, like Perram will always be there. But Glanville.
Oh, no.
Glanville's retiring.
What?
I mean, he's got let's be honest, he's got some interest to retire too.
Oh, I'm happy for Glanville.
Yes. I'm sure he'll have a very...
It was the realization that like no Perram on the network doesn't mean no Perram, but no Perram on the network means that's it for Glanville. And that was like, Glanville and I have had some good times.
If you ever want him to make a guest appearance on an actual play, give me a yell.
Maybe I will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't think about no Glanville. Now I'm sad. Again.
Yeah.
I liked Glanville, and I liked him arguing with your all's characters.
Oh my gosh. Idonia and Glanville arguing is like the most favorite part of playing Idonia. I get to wait to see something about the aristocracy messing something up, and Glanville comes back and is like, well, they're the one who fixed it. It's like, oh my gosh. Those two again.
It's fun because like politically I'm the exact opposite of Glanville. But
yes,
like,
I know.
Of course, Glanville's like, we can't let the peasantry decide these things. Look what silly things they decided to do all on their own. We need people that have been raised since birth to make important decisions.
I was trying to define Glanville and Xavier's relationship the other, well, just, I don't know, just in one of my imaginary conversations with you. And like they just get along, right? Like they're just pleasant coworkers.
Right.
Like there's definitely certain characters that have a very, I don't know, very developed, very pronounced relationship, but Glanville and Xavier just, they just get along. They're there.
Yeah.
They're
Glanville
along the
has
same
perfect trust in Xavier to do what Xavier's good at.
Oh, Xavier's good at everything.
Which makes it a very excellent person to trust.
Gosh. Especially working out those abs. I mean, that's a talent right there. That's a gift.
My favorite Glanville Xavier moment is the wig moment when he's just accusing Xavier. He's like, "You just don't want me to be beautiful."
Oh, that was so good.
I don't know about my favorite Xavier Glanville moment, but my favorite Glanville moment was like Lauren as Lily was just explaining some plan of hers, and Glanville's just like, "Why?
Why are you doing all this convoluted stuff? Let's just go in and take the thing." And it's like, oh my gosh. I really liked it when he would use illusion spells that really showed like his personality and his point of view more than just, here's a good use of an illusion spell. It's like it was always colored in that point of view and an expression of the character through spell description. And I just thought that was always brilliant.
You really liked the Gaslight special, didn't you?
What was his name? He looked like Bo Dallas. I don't remember the character's name, but yeah, that noble that we just tortured him just for being kind of snooty. Like he wasn't one of the bad guys.
Was he like the tax collector guy?
No, the tax collector guy that we murdered.
Yeah, no. He was a bad guy.
No. You murdered.
I believe I okayed his murder.
Stringently against the murder involved in that.
I did not murder him. Lauren's character murdered him. Lily murdered him. Everyone else is like, what are we going to do with him? And then he chokes to death. And we're like, oh, well, I guess that's what we're going to do.
Yes, let's say that's what happened.
That's how I remember it. And I refuse to re-listen to that episode. I don't want to shift my paradigm. Thank you.
Actually, Perram, I think I do know what my favorite Xavier Glanville moment was. It was actually just recently in The Young and Adventurous where I had a bad string of rolls and I just went up to you and was like, well, my bow's cursed. And you were just like, you humored Xavier of just like, yes, that's what's going on. You did a little mumbo jumbo. You played along really well. You got what I was going for. You got where Xavier's perspective shifted from my perspective. And it was just nice. It was just a nice moment.
You're a fun person to roleplay with, Brian.
Thank you.
Perram, if you had a chance to get any gaming group together with any people ever, who would you have? And also, would you run it or would you be a player? Like your dream game table.
All right. So,
and it doesn't have to be us. It's okay.
Well, the fun thing is like, so I would have two GMs, Thirsty and Crystal.
Okay.
It would be myself, obviously, in the game because, and I would have to have. I'm gonna make a lot of people mad by not having them at the table, but because I've played with a lot of very great players, and I've already know from you saying that some of them are watching this. Okay, I have to get Ryan in there because me and Ryan.
Sure, really I know I said earlier it's okay to say me. It's okay to not say me.
No, but I do need you in there because you've got this sort of driven purpose when you play that is like admirable and keeps me trying hard to do better.
You would commit war crimes for him, so
this is also true.
Yeah, it's on the record.
I want V in there because V is one of the best players I've played with. John Compton would be next. I would want John Compton. Chris Jackson.
Nice.
And who for the final slot?
Now he said anyone ever. You could be playing with Abraham Lincoln. You could be playing with Gandhi.
I know. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Sorry, Abe.
And if I'm gonna go with anybody, then I'm gonna pit Jack Black in the last slot.
Oh, Jack Black. Wow.
Certainly.
One
Yes,
celebrity.
good choice.
And two of the best GMs I've ever had the experience of playing under. And if Thirsty didn't want to be the GM, I also love playing with Thirsty. So both of those options are acceptable. But Crystal has to GM.
Sorry, Crystal. This is your life now.
Now, that said, I will happily GM for Crystal. And without saying too much, Crystal's might be involved in some of the aforementioned opportunities that I am going to be working on.
Wow, you and Crystal and Jack Black are getting together to play games.
I mean, it's going to be the best thing ever, right?
Wow. Are you sure you don't want to release that on No Direction Network? Because I mean, like, well, I'll just edit it. Like, I don't even have to be a part of the show. I'll just edit it. That'd be pretty cool.
What game would you play, or would it just be whatever Crystal decides to run?
I want to rotate. Honestly, if I could do like if it's one game, I would want it to be. I don't want it to be Robotech or yeah, Robotech would be fun. Because it's 80s enough, but it's a property none of us are directly working on. So that's what disqualified the Joes.
You know of.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure that license is refreshed recently enough that it's not on the market yet. But just saying, what has happened in 6 months?
Oh my god.
And
I'm surprised you're not going with something nautical since you put Chris Jackson on the table.
Yeah.
Because space is nautical. In every depiction of space, they always revert to mariner
Nautical
terms.
Yeah. Port and starboard. Yeah. Interesting.
Those are your nautical terms, me. Port, starboard.
Do you want me to start talking about jibs? Because I mean, I can, but that doesn't make for a very good Pathfinder show.
Now, if this wasn't a one-time thing and was an ongoing thing, I'd want to rotate games a bit, and this would be one of the games I'd want to play.
Golden Sky Stories.
Golden Sky Stories. Have y'all heard of Golden Sky Stories before?
Warming role playing.
So Golden Sky Stories is it's kind of like the wholesome RPG where your characters are the local spirits for a small village that's going through some troubles, and you have to, as spirits that can turn into animals, like influence and help the town out without them discovering you're there.
Oh, cool.
That's kind of adorable.
And I would totally want to play this so much. I've been begging. I would need the perfect group to play a game like this with, and that's kind of like, I need people that would be able to buy into, like, heavily into role playing and wholesomeness, and not need violence to fuel that, because there's no violence at all in this game.
But then what are the space mechs for?
Space mechs.
Because you have to build space homes for space homeless people.
Oh.
If I ever get a chance to play that with you, dibs on playing a squirrel, because then I have an excuse when my ADHD sets in and I forget what we're talking about or doing in the game. You're like, what do you think of that plan? I'll be like, there was a plan?
Where to now?
It is fun.
Huh? Where to now?
What other things are you looking forward to doing with your in the future? Right, you have opportunities, but like it sounds like you want to paint minis and other stuff. But it's like, hey, now that you have some free time, or at least a different schedule, right? Are there other things that you're looking forward to doing even if it's just
So-
like I'd rather do nothing for 2 hours a week.
I can't not do things like I,
Mhm.
you know, like I wouldn't if it was do nothing. I wouldn't be making a change. It's I have projects I want to do, and I have things I want to learn. I want to be doing more short form video content. So because I am now like full-time video producer, I make videos all day, every day. It's kind of my life, and I kind of want to put some of that to use. And so, hey, maybe if anybody's interested in what I'm doing in the future, paying attention to my YouTube channel, probably a good idea. I want to learn. Well, I want to become better at 3D sculpting, and because through learning about 3D printing and that sort of thing, I since discovered that I actually have a bit of a natural talent at 3D art, and so I want to nurture that and give it the time it needs to grow. And that's going to take time and dedication, and I need lots more time to do that. Painting is something I've fortunately had time to do and have forced into my schedule because I love it so much. It used to be a huge part of my life, and then like a no direction sized chunk of not doing it, and then suddenly a pandemic sized chunk of doing it every day, and I've made leaps and bounds in my skill set these last couple of years, and I'm now starting to think like seriously about, hey, maybe I should try to make a crystal brush competition entry, or maybe I should think about entering a golden demon.
You absolutely should. You are very talented at 3D art. I've seen things that you're like you show me like, oh, what do you think of this? And you show me an image of some, 3D model, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And you're like, yeah, I made this. I'm like, wait, this isn't something you like found or altered, like you made this? And you're like, yeah, I just threw this together. And I'm like, how? I'm always
Ada
impressed by
Some
you.
Strude.
paint.
And it's the Eda Strude and the Esta snail.
Anyone understand what he just said?
No, nothing. I got nothing.
You press E to extrude and you press S to scale. And those are the two commands that you do 1,000 times when you're modeling something in 3D. And you say it's in the tutorial, say it so much that we just call it the Esta snail.
I would map those to my MMO mouse so I could just do it with one hand.
Mine broke.
Your MMO
I'm so
mouse
sorry.
broke?
Yeah, my 37th MMO mouse is broken.
Jeez.
What about you?
Oh, no.
Get a good one.
I'm buying the best ones available, Ryan.
I figured you were.
They just get a lot of use.
No, but what I am going to be using is this my
Your hand?
my big old
Your green knuckles?
Helion. Oh yeah, that's from painting. That's from painting a whole bunch of these zombies earlier. No, my hewing on drawing tablet that I got specifically to get better at 3D art, and it's currently right here as my second monitor. But I've got this thing like articulated Voltron style, so it'll just like fold up and transform into like a desk when I need it to.
That's cool. That is so cool.
Actually, my entire desk setup is it looks a whole lot like I joined the Adeptus Mechanicus.
with all the control arms everywhere, like holding up
Yeah,
your
it's like,
light and
Look
your
at this
camera
boom
and your
arm and four
Skulls
arms,
with
one,
cyborg
this
eyes.
one. The things that I promise aren't made out of real babies.
Oh, wait, what?
For crimes.
I was gonna say.
Well, that's the thing with in Warhammer, they have the little cherub things, and they promise they're not made of real babies.
What? I'm glad I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. Whew. But yeah, that sounds really cool. I was telling you earlier, like, I'm so jealous of your setup because you've got just, I don't know, everything looks so good. I'm gonna zoom back in on you. Look at this depth of field happening, where even the camera, or rather the microphone is like slightly out of focus because it's closer to the lens, and like Perram's perfectly in focus, and then the background's all blurry, and that is all camera work. And then the lighting has just everything about it's so beautiful. So I'm definitely going to have to use you as a free consultation to help me get my camera rigs all set up.
Of course. And that doubles then for you too, Luis, if you ever want to get a
Okay.
DSLR set up.
Perhaps, yes. Dungeon Novice is asking, other than Facebook and YouTube, where else could they keep an eye out for you, Perram?
So I'm on Twitter. That's probably a great place. So Twitter is where I'm very public about things. So I do get like debatey with the public discourse over there. So it's not like I'm a censored version of Perram, but you're not gonna like see Perram chatting about family stuff on Twitter. You can follow me on Facebook as well. That's a good place to follow me. But there I will get like a little bit more personal chummy with people. But Twitter's definitely where my public stuff. YouTube is where I post most of my projects, and when the short form video stuff starts coming out, that's where you'll find that. So that's youtube.com/Perram. I did manage to get the /Perram there.
Sweet.
Perram for anybody who doesn't know how to spell it. And the other podcast, the only one that's currently public and published, the project that I'm working on, is the printergames.com. It's the podcast all about 3D printing and stuff, which I'm doing with Kristen, who is a fantastic host. And V, thank you very much for helping me get a Kristen.
He's amazing.
Very much so. It's basically no direction for 3D printing because I only know how to do one kind of show.
Right.
And I'm going to get real inside baseball with all these creators. And I'm finding that like one of my number one demographics is other creators. It's like, oh, who's watching my show? Other creators, because we're getting really inside baseball.
Right. Well, and then also like it helps to build, like you were saying earlier, it helps to build the audience and build the number of creators and the number of people who are like, oh, I could do that. So that's fantastic.
So you heard,
you two were not expecting to be the only hosts on No Direction. So
now
you're a couple months into your stint. What do you think the future holds for you?
I don't know. I barely mentioned a thing with Vanessa about like, oh, maybe we will change up how we do the tech, things like that. But that's more saying like, hey, Vanessa, do you have any thoughts on changing the tech, things like that? Because we're as much as you've grown to get comfortable with that, we're not necessarily beholden to that. I don't know. I find myself in a weird position, which so originally when Perram asked me, it's like, hey, would you want to be a host along with me and V? I'm like, oh, okay, well, if there's three of us, that's good because there's a little bit of wiggle room in case, hey, if one of us has to miss or whatever, you can still have an episode with two hosts, right? And usually that works out no problem. And personally, there was also I don't know if that's going to work for me in terms of my schedule. So if a few weeks in I realize I need to back out, I can. It never came to that, but that safety net is gone. Thanks so much, Perram.
So what you're saying is there's an open chair. When are you having auditions?
There could be. I don't know. We're still figuring our 2-person thing out, right? Like, but the other thing is that my proximity to Paizo is one that no one in one of these chairs has ever had, right? At most, it's, hey, one of you maybe wrote on a product, or hey, I got some beers with Eric Mona once at a con or something, right? Like, so it's a strange thing that I think we'll have to figure out as we go, which is why we're never doing reviews again. I don't think we're going to be doing breakdowns and things like that. We can't. But we'll
can't be
see what
completely
happens.
unbiased anymore. Yeah.
The FTC says you're not allowed to.
Yeah, we literally can't. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think there's a good opportunity to with 2E. I've noticed it feels like there's a whole surge of new blood that came into the game and doesn't necessarily know all the stuff that was the 10 years prior to 2E, right? Feels like there was a sudden paradigm shift of like, oh, the population that is the Pathfinder fan base is significantly different pre-2e and post-2e, which is an opportunity, a good opportunity for maybe us to do episodes where we kind of dive back into the history of things and bring people back up to, they don't need to be brought up to speed, but get a chance to discuss some older things.
The forgotten history of Pathfinder, the role-playing game.
We can do stuff like that. I mean, depending on also what the network is up to, there might be other changes that we decide to do, because the No Direction that I joined in 2016 is not the No Direction that it's today, right? I was a guy that decided, oh, I like making monsters, someone will let me put them up on a blog. And now here I am, rarely fulfilling that because I'm doing all these other things. And I'm the host of the whole thing that I was yelling at in my car because they were getting the Ultimate Wilderness name wrong. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
I think Wilderness Adventures.
It'll be. I think we have had our chance to slowly figure out our dynamic, Vanessa and I, which is not the same Lauren and I dynamic. But Lauren and I also have 2 years now at this point, whereas we've only got 4 months, 5 months.
Yeah.
At this point. So it'll be fun to figure it out. I think we have a lot of opportunity to figure it out and really make it our own as we go on, and hopefully people still like the No Direction, or it brings more people on with our new bold take on No Direction.
I'm sorry, are you calling it the No Direction? Was there a title change that I was not made aware of?
We're testing things out. You never know.
Any slip of the tongue is automatically testing things out at the beginning of a reformat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of us figuring each other out too. And like Luis's calm, measured, approach to things, and my like completely insane ramblings of high chaotic energy. I think it's going to be great. I know that, when Perram asked me to join him on No Direction, I was really looking forward to doing a show with him on a regular basis. Occasionally when, Ryan had to miss or something, I got to fill in here and there, and I got to fill in for Perram every once in a while when he had to miss, and I got to host with Ryan, and those were always fun times. And so I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds really cool. And one of the things that, has definitely happened is it's like, oh, okay, Perram's definitely editing the episode, and I get to show up and talk about cool stuff and like, all right, go do the edit. See ya. Thanks, Perram. And now,
that's my job. I get to just say bye.
Yeah, he can say bye. I got to edit things. I'm going to go to bed in an hour. I'll talk to, okay, bye. And so that's why I think we're talking about a lot of how we might want to reformat the tech in various different ways. Partially because I know originally I wasn't planning on having that burden of responsibility of doing the tech, and I don't mind doing it, but we definitely need to find a sustainable way to make that happen. And so changes are bound to happen when there's a major shakeup like this. So we'll see what direction we go. We'll cast No Direction, and then it'll tell us. Wait, that's not how. But I think it's going to head into a really good place. Like Luis was saying, with all of the new energy in Pathfinder for second edition, and recently Pathfinder trended 2 or 3 different times across all of Twitter, and it's getting a lot of momentum and a lot of attention. And I think it's another strike while the iron's hot moment for us to really grab a lot of that fan base and kind of move along with us. So I think it's good. Not to say that I'm happy Perram's going. I'm not, and not just because I have to produce and edit now, but because you're such a wise and calm person, and a wise and calming presence to my chaoticness. And I mean, I have Luis for that, thank goodness. Otherwise, who knows what would happen. But I'm also going to miss your readily available experience, I think.
mean, Louise is a living example of min maxing the will stat.
Will? All right,
We're playing third edition, right?
I guess.
Will is a stat. Yeah, Luis's wisdom guy.
You say so. Hey, Brian, is there anything as director of logistics that you would love to see in the future of No Direction or the network? I mean, you're in an interesting spot where I feel like you've taken a pretty mostly backseat in terms of what's going on with the network at this point. At least you're not like in the spotlight in the same way.
Right. Yeah, I've taken a pretty far back seat. Like I'll still do the editorial, but now I've changed it to Now You Know instead of Recall Knowledge because a YouTube channel of the same name had come up, and I just wanted to broaden it because I thought maybe we were going to have a lot of Essence 20 content on the network. But I'm so busy working on Essence 20 that I can't even keep up with all of my Essence 20 network plans. So now it's just this tiny little corner where if people still want to find me, they can, and otherwise I'm just mostly doing logistic stuff for the network at this point. So yeah, you know what? Changes at the network. I'm just kind of happy to see what you all want to do. I guess we're ready for an infusion of maybe some people from this new group of fans that have come in to 2E that we've just been talking about. It would be cool to have somebody from that demographic represented on the network, providing some kind of content, just, you know, to stay in touch with what people care about. Or maybe not. Maybe we should just focus on being the people, like servicing the fan base that reflects who we already are. Yeah, I don't know. I like how the network has grown organically, so I do kind of just take things one step at a time and see where we go and what seems to be calling us, like what direction we should be going in based on just what's happening in the community at large. Yeah, so, you know, keep doing what you're doing. Make sure you're happy. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help. You know, same old stuff we've been doing for the last little while.
Yeah.
Well,
Perram, I'm wondering, is there anything that like you feel? I don't expect you to be like, oh man, it's such a shame that I'm, you know, all these regrets with I'm leaving. But like, there's just like that one little thing, like I wish I had just a chance to have done this thing with No Direction or the network.
Ooh.
Like maybe, I don't know, there was a project that got halfway off the ground but never fully off the ground or anything. You're like, that would have been great or anything like that.
Oh, that's tough. Like there's a lot of projects that didn't quite come together. I really wanted to. Okay, this one's good because it's silly. Because I was halfway through with it, and then T.S. Rodriguez kind of got super popular and super busy. I wanted to originally make full on, I guess now we call them VTubers, but before then I was working on getting all of the KD characters for Adventurous into animated avatars, and I kind of regret that we never got that finished.
I'm so happy that Sheppy is busy.
Seriously.
He's so happy. So
Great
happy.
problem to have.
Right.
I just occasionally check in on his page and it's like, well, does it still say commissions closed? Okay, I'll come back in 2 weeks.
He did our Vellum and Lace cover, and I remember when I asked him, he's like, I'm just super busy. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, you were my number one person. I don't even have a number two person to ask, so I guess I'll have to figure that out. And he's like, you know what? I'll squeeze you in. And I was like, so I cashed in my friendship, and that's it.
Yeah. I'm just super glad, like, because the first Adventurous art was Sheppy fan art from Sheppy, and that was so touching, and was one of the reasons that we hired him to do the actual cast, because we knew it was coming from someone who cared and would know those characters.
Yeah.
Now he's doing his Patreon and everything, so I'm gonna do a shout out early and be like, hey, go support Sheppy's Patreon. I'll throw the link in the chat. Friend of the show, if ever there was one, I think.
Absolutely. You Perram.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time.
Yeah. I think this is probably a good place to get to the wrap ups, gang. Because we're
Yeah.
on time now for it.
Mhm. Sure.
Ryan, would you do the honors?
The wrap ups and shout outs song?
Yeah.
All right. Wrap ups and shout outs. Wrap ups and shout outs. Oh, nope.
Perfect. Wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. I'm all dry too. My tea and my water's done.
Oh
Oh,
goodness.
boy.
So
Right,
you were mentioning Shippy's Patreon. He's doing these really cool like isometric paper minis,
Miniatures
essentially, just like
and
tokens,
maps,
miniatures, yeah, and maps and everything. So if you really like isometric maps and minis and things, that's a good place to go. They're really
Or he also releases them without the base, so you can still just use it as good artwork for wolves and skeletons and any monster that you want. So it's just great. It just looks fantastic.
Very cool.
I had not seen these. These are super cool.
And there's
Yeah.
even some of them that I think are free. I think that he's looking to give a few of them away here and there for free, just because he's a great guy.
Ooh.
What
got
have
a
you got,
couple of-
Ryan? Oh, go
Ryan.
ahead. Feel free.
So I've got a couple of shout outs, just that might be of interest to fans. I kind of shouted this out to the non-episode last time, which is that if you wanted to right now, you can print a tiny Perram.
Oh yeah.
So Duskground Miniatures were fans, and they surprised us with this weird model that's so wonderful of a kobold with an owlbear pulling a cart, and me and Kristen just hanging out on the side of the cart, having a good old time. And
Hold on,
that's
we
the
got-
second time somebody's turned me into a miniature. Did y'all see that?
No,
Or do I need to-
it took over my entire Zoom page and went full screen and did a bunch of weird stuff. But
Oh,
there is a link in the chat, so that's
Yeah.
there. Thanks,
Yeah.
Dustin.
yeah.
Justin's so good with the links.
Last Sword
Yes.
Miniatures did another Perram a few weeks ago. So there's a different Perram. So if you want a tiny Perram miniature, you got two options. But the
Wow.
Last Sword one was part of their paid release. So you actually have to buy that one. But the Duskground ones is available absolutely for free. So that's a way to get a tiny Perram Hobbit if you want one.
you go.
Or if you just want a really cool owlbear, that's a great, because the owlbear cart with a kobold riding it. You don't have to put the weird hobbit on the side of it.
You absolutely want the weird hobbit on the side. In fact, I definitely want to get that. I don't have a way to 3D print it, but I'll find a way, and then I can paint it, and then I can have you sitting on my desk.
And the other show that I want to do is like there's this really cool podcast network called No Direction that you should totally go check out at nodirectionpodcast.com. They've got this Facebook page at facebook.com/no direction, and this Twitter page at twitter.com/no direction, and this YouTube page that for some reason doesn't follow the naming convention because some idiot screwed that up, but call it youtube.com/no direction show.
Yeah, and then the website, which is nodirectionpodcast.com, also not following the convention,
Yeah.
but you will find a link to the Discord, which is just No Direction Network Discord. So you can follow all of them.
We could not get nodirection.com. I tried.
Oh yeah, web URLs are really tough. I recently opened my little indie studio that's still trying to get on its feet, Ninja Cat Games, and I have ninja-catgames.com, and then I realized .games is an extension, so I got ninjacat.games, which is probably the one I'll end up using, but I have to like switch everything I already put on ninja-catgames.com over to ninjacat.games.
Perram, while we got
.games
you
is an
here-
expensive one.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I've heard of like .games and there's some really weird ones like .golf and .guitar and
Yeah.
stuff.
Mhm.
Perram, while we have you here, do you mind if I ask you to tell everyone about the Discord, the No Direction Discord server, one last
Well, if
time
you-
before you go?
If you want to hang out with the chillest community in Pathfinder, Starfinder, and other nerdity, you can do so over at the No Direction Discord. The link you'll find at nodirectionpodcast.com. Click on the Discord link there. And while you're there, you might as well click on the Patreon link right below it to help us continue to do shows just like this and continue to have the network grow. And as a member of the Patreon, you'll get access to the after party, the patrons private sanctum, which will be taking place directly after this show over at the Discord private channel. All you have to do is join the Patreon at the correct level or above and link your Discord account to your Patreon account, and you'll be able to join us after the show. It's become my favorite part of doing the network.
And do I have permission to use that in perpetuity for the rest of the shows? And I can just hit
Absolutely. It's y'all's show now, gang.
play. Fantastic.
Ryan, do you have anything to shout out?
It's all self-serving stuff. So
Okay, then do it.
all right, check out Order from Disorder, the G.I. Joe role-playing game, actual play that teaches you how to play the game. It's on the Renegade Game Studios YouTube channel, and they're airing the pre-recorded episodes on Twitch every Tuesday. For people that don't know, my job changed from Blind Ferret to Laughing Dragon Studio, and I help write the animated shorts that are on the Laughing Dragon Studio TikTok, which are super popular. So if you haven't checked those out, I recommend you go to TikTok/Laughing Dragon. Anyway, go to TikTok and look for Laughing Dragon Studio and just have a good time searching through those videos, because we're starting to post them like twice a day, and they are delightful, and my kids love them. And I love them, frankly, even if I wasn't involved in them. I mean, check out Upshift. We're supposed to have an episode this week. I hope I'll be able to pull it off. It's going to be on Discord this week. It's in the Geek Together voice channel until I set up a proper Upshift voice channel on our Discord. And otherwise, I feel like there was something else I wanted to shout out too. I guess go check out Print Your Games. It's a cool podcast about 3D printing miniatures and stuff. It's like the guys know what they're talking about. I don't, but I can still kind of follow it, and I can definitely follow the enthusiasm, which is nice.
Very nice.
Tomorrow we'll be talking about the Saturn II.
Oh,
The satellite?
The planet?
The,
there a new
the Sega
Saturn?
system, the gaming console.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't
back.
believe that Sega got involved in 3D printing.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. They're trying to hold on, I guess.
I got one more shout out that I want to do. So this weekend is PaizoCon.
Oh yeah.
Since when?
PaizoCon is happening
Nobody told me.
Oh, nobody told you. And we're having a lot of cool stuff going on. I will be there in person, so you can come by and wave at me and keep your nice safe distance so we're all safe. And I'll be also talking on the Secrets of Galarian panel, where I will reveal how Eridan died.
What?
I think
That's
I'm
not
allowed to do that. And just hanging out and whatnot. And I think we have special guests there in the form of our guest of honor, Vernessi Haskins, I think.
Yeah, Vernessi Haskins just sort of arrived recently in the Pathfinder space. No one's really sure who they are, but this should be interesting to find out who Vernessi Haskins really is.
She does that fanfic, right?
Are you?
Wow. Shots fired, and then poof, he's gone.
That's the thing I'm sensitive about.
We can't be mad at Perram, so he's taking advantage of it.
It really is. Wow, turn those screws.
No, seriously, if I didn't think that Vanessa wasn't one of my Vanessa's probably one of the best creators I know. So it's the only reason I feel comfortable giving her a jab, because she can't possibly construe it as any legitimate criticism.
No, I know you're being all right. And I love you and trust you enough. I would commit war crimes for you.
Oh, I've been handed a correction. I both cannot reveal how Aridin died, and also it's Vanessa Hoskins, guest of honor.
No one would have guessed. Yeah.
She's how Aridin died?
Yes.
That's it.
You killed Aridin.
I
Vanessa
sure
will
did.
tell you all about it at PaizoCon.
In fact, I got to go tell Aridin on Twitter, because Aridin is on Twitter, which wasn't going to be one of my 2 Twitter shoutouts, but he is, and Dustin in chat will probably get you the link, because I don't have it. I actually had 2, I'm going to just move right on for that. I had 2 shoutouts that I want to give, and both of them are really cool Twitter accounts that do like deep dives into Pathfinder lore, into Galarian lore. And the first one I want to talk about is Gloria of New Thassalon. And that one is at GB, I don't know how to spell this, GBRAENAR. Or you can just search for Gloria of New Thassalon. And it's very cool, because a lot of the lore that is dumped is done like in an in-character sort of way, right? So it's like, oh, let me tell you about this thing, as I live in the country of New Thassalon. And
it's like a travel guide.
Like a travel guide, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's talking all about different parts of the world. But I just like that one's like an in-world, in-character sort of channel, sort of account. And then another account that's very cool is Today in Galarian, which is at Galarian Today. And they are super, super cool. I beat Dustin to the punch on the link in chat, which I'm very proud of. But Today in Galarian is more of, like, if you've ever seen those things that it was like, what happened on the day you were born? Like things like that. Those sorts of things, except for Galarian. So it actually takes the Galarian calendar versus our calendar, and it's like, well, today is the 23rd of, I used to know what May was. Well, anyway, but like, it'll be like, oh, here's where the festival of such and such deity is in this town, and they do this very specific thing. And they're just really interesting ways to pick up nuggets of Galarian lore, sort of slowly, and, so you can digest it over time and also engage with it. Because one of the things that's fun, because they're not just bot accounts, you can be like, hey, Today in Galarian, can you tell me more about this festival? And then they might be like, no, that was the only line in the book. Or they, or sometimes they can go into depth or have dialogue about a specific event. I know I've talked to them sometimes, being like, well, why do you think that this happens? And they're like, well, this other book says that it's this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I know a lot of Galarian lore, but I learn a ton from those 2 accounts, or refresh my memory on various things that happen. Desness, thank you. May is Desness. So yeah, if you want to look at the 23rd of Desness and what's happening, it'll tell you.
I actually have one very important final shout out, and that
shoot.
is, if you haven't been following what Dustin Knight's been doing, you're making a mistake. Infinite Reviews and the work he has been doing with the Pathfinder and Starfinder Infinite community has been absolutely amazing. And I'm just so glad to see all of the amazing content that he's both writing, producing, and how he's helping to organize a community that desperately needed some sort of catalyst to grow. And it is one of the most amazing things. I'm so happy for what he's doing.
Yeah, he's amazing. And related to that, he is also the new producer and one of the co-hosts on No Direction Beyond. When I picked up this gig producing and editing full time, I passed that one off to other members, making room for other people. Also, so I don't have to produce and edit 2 shows. But yeah, he's taken over that, and he's doing a real good job. I'm taking him under my wing the way Perram did for me at one point. And so congratulations to him for getting that spot too.
So like 80 hours at Gen Con?
No. I mean, I don't think we will have 80 hours at Gen Con, but hopefully I will see him at PaizoCon, because he lives in that area. All right. Perram.
All right. Yeah, Perram, any last words you want to say to the wonderful No Direction audience before you go? Even though you'll probably be back on sometime soon, right?
I'm sure.
just that it has been an absolute honor to be part of the best gaming community I've ever known.
We are all the better for having you on the network all these years.
It wouldn't be a network without you, Perram.
That's absolutely true.
100%.
Ryan, can you say it?
Until next, well, are we saying our goodbyes?
Yeah.
Okay. Until next time, if you want to find the path, you need no direction.